What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another Stokastic NBA Live Before Lock Saturday night, which means I am joined by the flannel god himself, Neil Orfield, who's all pumped up. One of his favorite, actually, some would say his favorite sport ever, XFL. It's happening right now. So Neil's got his XFL hat. His XFL lineups are locked. They are ready to go, and we're about to break down some NBA for you guys as well. So as you come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are sponsored by PrizePicks today. So shout out to them. Neil, by the way, did you settle on a favorite XFL team, or are you just going to continue going the Rob Lowe thing and being like, I'm just an XFL fan?
I decided on a team. I am a San Antonio Brahmas fan. I think we talked about this because I want to be able to tell people that and have them not know what Brahmas are. But then I ultimately realized that everybody knows what a Brahma is except me anyway. So I actually don't sound that smart, but I'm sticking with them anyway. I like Hines Ward.
Okay.
And by the way, it actually it'll lock at 7:00 Eastern time, and it is only like 80% full right now. So don't go and make XFL lineups. Stay here and listen to us about NBA, but also make XFL lineups on the side, maybe.
Although, like, do you think there's going to be overlay? I don't know the size of the contest or anything. Is this going to like end up?
Yeah, I think there's going to be, because it's been open like all week.
Okay.
I don't know if there'll be overlay. There'll at least be reduced rake.
And we do have projections for it over at Stokastic.com. And I know we're here for NBA, but just going to shout out that if you guys sign up for our platinum package and use the link below, which is 50% off, you're going to get access to tools and data for every single DFS sport out there. So obviously it's going to help you for NBA tonight. It's going to give you our projections, our ownership projections. But you're going to get those XFL projections too. And it could be cool like Neil and be a Brahmas fan. So you did say, I wasn't sure you definitively said you were going to go with them. You were leaning towards them, but I didn't know if you'd made the official decision yet.
Yeah, you apparently don't have notifications on for my Twitter, because I officially announced it on Twitter that I am now a Brahmas fan. Also, a Rush asked, what do I have planned for tonight? And we talked about this a little bit last night. I am going to Hell on Earth, which is also called the Mall of America. I'm going to the Mall of America for dinner. My friend was doing an escape room, which I'm missing that part, but going to join for my friend's birthday dinner at the Mall of America.
Oh,
so yeah, wish me luck.
So yeah, I'm on your Twitter page right now. Are you sure you made an official announcement?
I know for certain that I did.
Are you shadow banned then? Because I'm on your Twitter page and I don't see it anywhere.
It may not have been my most recent tweet. It was not. It was all the way back. It might have been on like Tuesday, so you'd have to scroll a while.
All right. Well, no offense. I'm not that committed to trying to find out what your favorite XFL team is. I'll take your word for it, though. Yeah, I'll believe you. I'll take your word for it. I'm a little dubious whether you actually tweeted it or not, but I'm not going to do too big of a deep dive into this. Now, guys, by the way, since there was no deeper dive today, and this is a 5-game slate, we're actually going to be going game by game here instead of doing the usual thing where we sit and wait for injury news and kind of break down the slate as it goes. I think this slate will actually set up fairly well for us to go game by game, particularly because there aren't really players on the injury report for tonight. So I don't expect there to be very much breaking news as we go along here, but same deal. If you guys are watching in Discord at me, we're going to be able to answer those questions as we go along. And yeah, let's just jump right into it, Neil, unless you have anything else you want to add about the slate just in general before we start getting into this.
Oh, sorry. I was chatting with people about XFL in chat. I was just going to respond. Hannah Banana says the Roughnecks is a cool name. I honestly thought about going with the Roughnecks just because I thought the name was so cool, but ultimately had to go with my heart and follow Hines Ward. Yeah, so I mean, we've got a little bit of value from San Antonio here with Devontae Graham, Charles Bassey. They're just missing several players. It's not like an incredible slate in terms of finding value, just because most of these teams are actually pretty healthy, or at least like, obviously like the Timberwolves missing Karl Anthony Towns, but he's been out for forever. Jimmy Butler now ruled in. So we don't have a ton of great value on this slate. I guess we do have a million Detroit players out as well. We have 1 million Detroit players out as well. So I guess they are kind of shorthanded, but it seems like, they've already been priced up for, the additional minutes that they're getting. So a little bit of value there, but not like incredible value like we were getting from Detroit earlier. But yeah, we can break it down game by game. We'll talk about all these different teams.
Yeah, it's crazy. The Pistons have like 4 actual NBA players, and of those 4, 1 million of them are out today. It's
exactly
quite the scenario the Pistons find themselves in. But yeah, we'll start going. And actually, we're going to open up by talking about the Pistons-Cleveland game. And just as an overarching question as we get into this game, how much are you going to consider the blowout risk? Because it's something that I generally think it's overblown for a lot of spots. Not in this one, though. This is a 16-point spread. This is about as much blowout risk as you will see in any individual NBA game. And with the spread being so wide, Cleveland favored by 16, they're so much better than Detroit. Any concerns this game becomes one-sided, and is that going to inform your lineups or how you go about building them in any way?
Yeah, it's a reasonable thought, especially on a 5 game slate. Like you can think about it and just like decide to cut a game out if you are concerned about a blowout, or play a little bit more of guys who might get extra run in a blowout. I tend to not do that all that much though. Like guys who are not really in the rotation, maybe they'll get extra fourth quarter run unless they're already like gonna get reasonable minutes. I have not made any plans to account for the blowout, but I do think that it's a reasonable thing to think about on a 5 game slate for sure. Like you can definitely think about cutting the game out, just like make your lineups with just the last 4 games, or go the alternative route and think about if there are any players who you like more due to a blowout. I haven't thought about whether there are players that I like more due to a blowout. Maybe I'll give that a little bit more thought. Do you have anybody that you like better because of the blowout potential, Greg?
I was just looking because somebody said that somebody was echoing. Is this a me? Is this Neil's voice is off? Is it neither of ours? It's just one person's opinion. Jason Sweden says he hears us both. Greg Magruder, are you all talking about the show from earlier today? It's fine. Yeah, just one person's opinion. So all right, it looks like we are all good to go here. Yeah, I do think it's something worth contemplating for this game, and it's hard because I don't really think that there's any Pistons, because the Pistons are already fairly shorthanded, and
Right.
like I don't think that there's any one individual player that I think would look better in a blowout scenario necessarily. But on the Cleveland side of the game, it definitely makes me less interested in the likes of Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, because even if the game is, it's hard to imagine with a 16-point spread, this is going to be a super close game at the very least. Like, could we agree on that?
Yeah, it's unlikely to be a super close game.
So with that in mind, I just don't think there's a need for Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland to play their total full allotment of minutes. Right? It doesn't mean that they have
Yeah.
to go out and play 28, but it does make a big difference if these guys are playing like 32 or 33 as opposed to 35 or 36. So I think I'm probably going to be inclined to just avoid the top end Cleveland guys just because of that. It is something on my mind.
Yeah, no. So I agree with that. I think that's a reasonable take. I'm also just looking for like, do you think like, I mean, Dean Wade, Chetty Osman, do you think they get potentially extra minutes in a blowout? Because I'm like, Ricky Rubio would be the other point guard, but I don't think they're giving Ricky Rubio a blowout run. To me, I guess if I were to play somebody, outside the box from Cleveland, it would probably be a Dean Wade or a Chetty Osman, maybe Isaac Okoro, but I don't know. I don't feel strongly about it in terms of players I like better. But I agree with you. Like that's probably the number one takeaway, is that maybe we just like the top end guys a little bit less from Cleveland.
I have somebody that I like from Cleveland, and it's a little bit of a teaser because we're going to talk about the Pistons first. But I got somebody from Cleveland. It's actually going to be DraftKings specific because of a pricing difference. That's going to kind of tip off. A lot of people are going to figure out who it is that I like based on that. But we'll start by talking about the Detroit Pistons. And there is nobody who's questionable on the injury report in any of these games for tonight. But one thing that does stand out about the Pistons, very, very shorthanded, because Isaiah Stewart's out, Bojan Bogdanovic is out, Alec Burks is out, Jalen Duren is out. These are the active players: Wiseman, Ivy, Hayes, Diallo, Rodney Magruder, my betrothed, Isaiah Livers, Marvin Bagley, Corey Joseph, RJ Hampton, and then Eugene Omoruyi. So they only have 10 active players. Pretty shorthanded, the Detroit Pistons. That's also why I'm saying, for a blowout scenario, they only have so many guys they could play because most of them are out. So what really comes down to here with the Detroit Pistons is, are there any cheap guys that do look like good options to you? And keep in mind that at least for them specifically, I'm not too concerned about the blowout risk just because they have so few players to play.
Yeah, I mean, so some of our best value on the slate does come from Detroit. Hamidou Diallo looks great. We've got him a 6.1x value currently projected for over 27 fantasy points at 4,500. He's one of our better point per dollar plays on the entire slate. Killian Hayes, not bad either at 5,300. A lot of these guys, like, they look like good values. They're just not like the slam dunk values that we had them when they were all in the 3,000s a week ago. So Killian Hayes still looks playable at 5,300. Looks like a good point per dollar play. James Wiseman, similarly, 4,900. We've got him at 5.4x. Corey Joseph, if you're looking for real value, he's 3,200. We've got him projected for around 22 minutes, 17 fantasy points. Obviously, he can spike a little bit higher than that. I don't know how much higher for Corey Joseph. Not somebody that I love to play, but only projected for about 5% ownership. So at 5% ownership on a 5 game slate, I think he's fine. I don't think that he benefits from blowout run or anything like that, but he can still get it done. Jaden Ivey looks fine at 5,700. Another fine point per dollar play, projected for around 30 fantasy points at 5,700 is not bad. I do think that your betrothed is playable here. 5.3x value for us. He's 3,100. We've got him with a projection of just over 16 in 25 minutes. So, Rodney McGruder, a guy who can, certainly make a few extra buckets and pay off that price tag pretty easily. I'd say not like an amazing play at 3,100, but if he gets hot, could put up 22 or something. Bagley looks fine. He's 5,200. We've got him projected for over 26 fantasy points. I think those are, I'm probably not playing Isaiah Livers. So I think that's kind of all the Detroit players that I have some interest in. Nobody stands out as like an amazing play. Hamidou Diallo, the best value. The field's getting there around 37% too.
So here's the question I have for you about Hamidou Diallo, because he's very, very popular. He's the most popular player on the team by far. We've got him, like you said, at 35%. Then we've got, Hayes, Ivy, Wiseman, all projected for around 15%. In cash games, I do highly recommend that you guys play Hamidou Diallo. I think he's one of the better value options we have on the shorter slate, at least as far as DraftKings is concerned. If we do look at some of the FanDuel pricing on the Detroit Pistons, it does look a little bit different, where you've got guys like Killian Hayes is up to 6,300. And then we've got Jaden Ivey, 6,100. Diallo's up to 5,500. Still playable on FanDuel and still very popular. But when we talk about him on DraftKings, also at the 35% ownership, and by the way, I think Diallo, FanDuel, and DraftKings, good cash game play because of how highly owned he is. What are you going to do with him in tournaments relative to his ownership, though? 35%, would you consider that too high, too low, or just right?
So just looking at it, to me, it looks a little bit high, just because, so the past two games, we do have Diallo has played 33 minutes and then 29 minutes the past two games. But that was that first game against Charlotte. Isaiah Livers got hurt in the third quarter, and Diallo got extra run as a result. And then Isaiah Livers was out the last game, and Diallo got a little extra run. He didn't start either of those games, but I think he got a few extra minutes just because of the Isaiah Livers injury. Now Isaiah Livers projected to be in for this game. So I could see the minutes taking a little bit of a dip. So I do think that he's a little bit risky. And when he's getting 37% ownership, I think I'm inclined to be a little bit under the field. I do want to look at what our boom bust, I actually haven't pulled that up yet. I'm curious what our boom bust tool says, because my inclination is to say he's a little bit overowned just because he's not starting. They're adding Isaiah Livers back to the rotation. There's a chance that he really, gets down to like 25 minutes or something. So my inclination is to say, I think I want to cut under the field, but I am curious what the boom bust tool says. How do you feel about it?
I'm going to say, based on my current lineups I built right here, I'm going to say that it is just about right. I am pretty close to being in line with the field on Hamidou Diallo. I'm curious to see what the boom bust tool is saying in the latest update, though, Neil. And then also, I think something we could do is try to figure out, like, if there's a leverage play on the Pistons we like off Diallo. The answer probably not, but still worth talking about on just a small slate. But if you have the boom bust tool pulled up right now, what's it saying about the ownership?
So it is saying that he is just slightly overowned. So I think you're about right, saying that the ownership looks, decent. So we've got him at 37% owned, 28.5% chance of booming, and then a 34% chance of being optimal. So slightly overowned according to the boom bust tool, but not far off.
All right. And then is there anybody on the Pistons that's a backcourt player that's showing up on our tools as maybe being underowned that we could look at as a leverage play off Diallo? In a scenario where let's say that Diallo is, either playing poorly or for whatever reason they go with somebody else in garbage time over him. Because there's somebody else you'd be looking at as a guard play from Detroit and be like, there's a leverage play who would benefit if Diallo fails.
I mean, Jaden Ivey, we've got a little bit of positive leverage on. I don't know that he's really dependent on Diallo all that much, but, projected for about 15% ownership, 17% chance of booming, 17% chance of being optimal. So a little bit of positive leverage on Jaden Ivey. Let me see if there's anybody else. Do you have somebody? I mean, you think Corey Joseph benefits if Diallo fails, or do you see anybody else that you think becomes a great play with Diallo if Diallo does fail?
My answer is going to be nobody, because there is potential for some of these guys on the end of the bench to end up playing extended minutes, maybe be Rodney McGruder, maybe be somebody like Isaiah Livers. The reality is that all these guys suck, not just from real life, but also from a fantasy perspective. And, even if we say like, all right, this guy gets 25 minutes, what's 25 minutes of Rodney McGruder going to do for me? Right. in this scenario, certain scenarios, me and Rodney together for 25 minutes, it's good times. Not around here, though. Not around here. So I'm pretty sure we have Greg McGruder in chat, do we not? Oh, yeah.
I assume so.
Yeah,
He's always watching your shows. He is committed to you.
Yeah, I found it. Greg Magruder, what up, my third leg twin? There we go. I found it. So anything else you want to add from the Detroit Pistons?
No, I think we covered the Pistons pretty well.
All right. We have a question here from Ace of Spade. It is his normal question. He just wants to know who my favorite options are for DK tiers. So let me pull up the tiers tab and see what I have over there for DK tiers. And tier 1, Embiid and Giannis are fairly close for me. I'm going to have a slight lean towards Giannis. I think Giannis's minutes are very tricky to predict today. Very, very tricky, because if you look at the last few games, there's a whole lot of factors involved that pull me in lots of different ways that made it really tricky for me to try to, I'm not even going to say project his minutes. I'm going to say guess his minutes for today, because he has not played extended minutes in a very long time now, but it's different reasons. So February 14th against the Celtics, 46 minutes for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Next game, he plays 9 minutes and gets hurt. The next game he plays 6 minutes and gets hurt. All right, now we're post All-Star break and whatnot. He takes the game off due to injury, comes back, plays 28 minutes his first game back. You know, they're just being cautious with him because he's coming off an injury. And then the game after that, he plays 28 minutes, but it was a blowout. They won by 22 over the Orlando Magic. So with that in mind, it is so difficult for me to confidently say how many minutes Giannis plays, because he only played 28 the last couple of games. One was his first game back from injury. The next one was a blowout. If the game was more competitive, would he have played 32, 33, 34 minutes? I'm not sure, but I like the upside. So long story short, I'm going to go with Giannis over Embiid for tier 1. Tier 2 for me is Domantas Sabonis. Tier 3, De'Aaron Fox. Tier 4 came up close between Şengün and Mobley. I'm going to lean towards Şengün just because of some of the concerns about a blowout with Evan Mobley. Tier 5, Zach Collins for me. And then tier 6 was Jeremy Sochan. So Ace of Spade, hope that helps you build out your tiers lineups. By the way, some people have had a lot of tier success. I think because we've been getting super chats about it, more people have been playing. I don't know if you got tagged on it yesterday, but I had somebody who came in first place in the tiers contest tag me yesterday. So it seems like it's catching on around here. People playing some tiers, and it is very beginner friendly type of contest to play in, because you got a limited player pool. It's pretty straightforward. You don't have to worry too much about correlations or anything like that.
No salary cap or anything.
Yeah, no salary cap. I was playing it a bunch at the start of the year and had a good amount of success with it. And they changed some of the structure of the prize pools. But yeah, I might have to get back into the tiers, especially because I'm running lineups for everybody's asking questions every day.
Right. Might as well.
Let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. And, we talked at the start of the game how wide the spread is. It is a 16-point spread for the Cavs. Off the top of my head, this might be the biggest favorite of the entire year. Can you remember a team being a bigger favorite than this?
I can't. I also don't usually pay attention unless I'm doing content related to it. So, yeah. But no, I can't think of any.
Yeah, so it potentially a massively one-sided game. I said that makes me not really want to get to the high-end guys. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. It's a great matchup, so you can make a case for upside, but I think the downside really outweighs it. That, and there is some ownership going to these guys as well. Mobley and Allen right around 20%. But I said that I have a contrarian play that I like in large field tournaments who I think could benefit from a blowout. Would you like to guess who that is on DraftKings, Neil?
Sorry, we're talking about from Cleveland?
Yes.
Okay. Somebody who would benefit from blowout, who you like as a contrarian play.
It's not like somebody's like 1% owned, but it's like for a 5-game slate, it's reasonably low ownership.
Okay. I'm going to go with, no, he is 1% owned. Karis LeVert.
Yep. And I was going to say most of chat has already gotten it at this point.
They're quicker than I am.
Yeah.
A little bit sharper.
They figured, when I said that it was somebody who had a big salary difference between FanDuel and DraftKings,
okay,
they figured it out fairly quickly. But LeVert did play 33 minutes last game, and we've seen him play garbage time at other points in time in the season, because playing behind Garland, playing behind Mitchell, it's hard for there to really be massive opportunity for LeVert to get extended run. And what the Cavs have generally done is either when somebody's out, he plays extended minutes, or sometimes in blowout run. And he's so cheap, $3,900 for a guy who's a really good points per minute fantasy producer, but just doesn't always get the minutes. I think this is a really good spot for Karis LeVert at low ownership to potentially pick up extended run, particularly if this game becomes a blowout. So is he somebody on your radar at all? Am I crazy? What are your thoughts on Karis LeVert?
No, like he's a perfect example of somebody who he's playable even without the blowout. Like he is a pretty good value. We've got him at 5.6x, projected for around 22 fantasy points at 3,900. So he's a great value regardless. And we know Karis LeVert is also a guy who can spike an upside even without getting more minutes. I mean, just in 25 minutes, he's capable of putting up 30 fantasy points, I would say. Like he's not usually going to. He's not greater than one fantasy point per minute guy, but he has that kind of upside. He has shown how much upside he has in the past. So I like Karis LeVert just fine. Yeah, I was wondering if Karis LeVert is somebody who would get extended run because he is, a veteran at this point. He's had some injury history. So I kind of wondered if he is somebody who they would play more in a blowout, but I suppose it is true that he just like they're so good in the backcourt that they don't have opportunities to play him more. So maybe they would take advantage of it.
And we've seen him play a garbage time in other games this year.
Okay.
So that's another reason too that it makes me think like, all right, look. And the other thing too that I like about a player like LeVert in this spot is even if let's say he gets normal minutes and there is no blowout, it's not like he's a terrible play at $3,900 on DraftKings anyway. Yep. Right. So to me, I view him as like he's decent right now and legitimately has potential to be, like a slate breaker if something was to happen with a blowout or somebody gets into foul trouble or something. So these are the kind of little edges that I like to look for on a smaller slate. And then, like I said, also played 33 and a half minutes last game. So, I think there's real potential for upside there as far as Karis LeVert goes. But talk me through some of the other players on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Is there anybody that you are prioritizing from this team?
No, so LeVert is like the best play on the team, in my opinion. Like he's already the best value on the team, point per dollar, and he's only getting under 11% ownership. So I do like LeVert quite a bit. After LeVert, though, there's nobody who stands out to me as somebody who like the field is really missing on, or like I'm really excited to play. Like Jarrett Allen, 6,900. We've got him projected for 35 fantasy points. He's also getting 18% ownership. So like he's already owned, I think reasonably. Evan Mobley, similarly, getting 23% ownership. He's 7,600. We've got him projected for 37 fantasy points. He actually looks like he's going a little bit over owned. Ricky Rubio pulling some ownership. So there's nobody, and Darius Garland also getting around 10% ownership, which feels about right. We're projecting him for around 41 fantasy points at 8,800. So he's just not a great play. I think you could consider playing, like if you want to play the blowout narrative, I could also see Okoro or Dean Wade or Chetty Osman picking up extra minutes in a blowout. But none of them are like super exciting plays. Like part of the reason that we like LeVert is that he's already a good play, regardless of whether he gets extra run. And like you said, he could be a slate breaker if he does get that extra run. Osman, Wade, Okoro, they all look like, not that great of plays. If there is no blowout, they kind of become like, yeah, maybe they could spike an upside if the game blows out, but still not likely to break the slate. So nobody who's really a priority for me from Cleveland.
And then one other thing that I want to bring up about Karis LeVert, it's DraftKings specific. He's $5,400 on FanDuel. It's way less appealing from at $5,400 than it is at $3,900. So when I built out lineups, I was getting to LeVert as actually my favorite contrarian play on the slate, not so much over on FanDuel for FanDuel purposes. And we did get a question in our Discord channel from T. Lee. T. Lee wants to know who are our favorite 2 to 3 DK plays for single entry. So for me, let's see. One of them is going to be Karis LeVert. I just like him as a contrarian option for single entry. Embiid is my favorite pay up option on DraftKings. Devontae Graham's really chalky, but I think he's a pretty good chalk value. But the other thing too is if I'm playing a good amount of Karis LeVert, it kind of mitigates some of the chalk elsewhere. Like if I have a lineup with Karis LeVert, it really helps offset like how many people are going to be playing, Karis LeVert in lineups that also some of the other chalk players. So I do feel like LeVert allows me to be a little bit chalkier in other spots. But for yourself, if you had answered T. Lee's question, if you're building a single entry lineup, who are 2-3 players you'd be prioritizing?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm just looking at our top leverage plays in the boom bust tool. Charles Bassey really stands out as somebody who's just going a little bit under owned. It's always tough because he's center only, and we always have so many options at center. But Charles Bassey only getting 12.5% ownership, 30% chance of booming, 22% chance of being optimal here. So it looks like a pretty great value and leverage play. So I think that Bassey is somebody that you could consider. Similarly, Trey Jones not picking up any ownership, around 13% ownership, 19% chance of being optimal, 19% chance of booming. So both of those San Antonio guys look like pretty solid plays. I like your call on Karis LeVert. I like, yeah, as you said, like Embiid is going to be owned. He probably should be owned. He projects really well. Actually, and Giannis, I agree with you that I think Giannis is somebody that I'd like to be over the field on rather than under the field. I do think it's likelier that he does play extended minutes just because Philly's only 5 games behind the Bucks. Like they're one of the few teams that could theoretically catch the Bucks in the Eastern Conference. So I think that if there is a game where they're going to, really use Giannis, it's going to be here against the Sixers. So I'd say those are a few of my favorite plays for single entry.
Yeah, and by the way, I do have more exposure to Joel Embiid, but I'm overweight to the field on Giannis as well because there's a fair amount of value on this slate. We've got the Spurs guys. There are definitely some Houston Rockets that are cheap that I think are worth getting to. I mentioned I like Karis LeVert in large field tournaments who's super cheap as a contrarian play. So with that in mind, I am not finding it hard to get overweight to both Joel Embiid and Giannis on this slate. We'll talk more about them once we get to that game. But before we move on, is there anything else you want to add on the Cleveland Pistons game? Totally fine if not.
Yeah, I think we've covered it pretty well.
All right, so let's move on to the second game of the slate. And this one is not going to be nearly as interesting for me. We've got the Atlanta Hawks playing on the tail end of a back-to-back against the Miami Heat. I don't really like anything from this game to kick it off. But talking about the Hawks side of the game, I was pretty big on Clint Capella yesterday. He came through. He ended up having a pretty good game, not for the reasons I thought he was going to. The minutes were not there in the way that I thought that potentially could be with Quinn Snyder as the coach. Part of it was also because the game was a blowout, but he was still very good. He scored 35 fantasy points at 5,600 in 25 minutes. But this being the tail end of a back-to-back in a very low-paced game against the Miami Heat, which just generally ends up happening in games that involve the Miami Heat. So I don't really see anything that stands out to me from the Hawks, but do you see it differently? Are there any players that are popping out to you?
No, I see it the exact same. I mean, Trae Young looks fine. Point per dollar projects a little bit under 5x. He's getting 17% ownership, so it's not like you're getting a really under-owned Trae Young. We've got DeJounte Murray projected for just 7% ownership. I don't know if that'll hold, but 7% ownership, I think DeJounte Murray kind of interesting. But my guess is he just had a huge game. Was that last night? So my guess is that he ends up picking up a little bit of steam. I do think, yeah, Capella certainly in play. DeAndre Hunter looks like a fine value, 4,600 projected for 4.9x. Sadiq Bey is only projected for 2% ownership. That's sort of interesting, but it's not like he's a great fantasy producer, only projected for around 26 minutes. So he looks fine, but not like really that interesting. John Collins has had like his minutes have been kind of all over the place. But the past handful of games, he hasn't exceeded 26 minutes over the past 4 games. So that's a little bit concerning that maybe he's just kind of losing playing time. I don't know that it's coming back. If he does, spike, he's kind of interesting only because it's a 5-game slate and there is a chance that his ownership or that his minutes spike up to like 30. And, John Collins, if he gets 30 minutes at 4,500, he would look really good. So he's, I would say, playable in a large field GPP. He could play a Kongwu, but not a great value. He said, I'd rather play like Bassi. So I think those are the only players that I really have into is Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Capella, Hunter, Bey, Collins are all playable. I think that if I had to pick a favorite here, it would probably be either Capella or I am sort of intrigued by John Collins as somebody just at 4,500. Do you see any reason that he can't spike up to like 30 minutes here?
I believe he's on a minutes restriction because of a back injury. Yeah. I mean, it is really cheap. I agree. If I had to play one player, it would be the Hawks. The good news is I don't have to play a Hawks player. There's no rules that there is no rules that say that you have to play a guy from the Atlanta Hawks. That used to be a rule in like 1986, but it got overturned. You no longer have to play one Atlanta Hawks player in DFS. So we are in the clear on that. By the way, we got a very important super chat from yours truly, Greg Magruder. He says, the only tiers I love, this is referencing the DK tiers before, are Lindquist tiers, which is very true. People don't know this. A lot of times I assume people wonder what it is that I'm drinking during shows. This is Eric's tiers that I keep in my water bottle here. Now, why? People might want to know. They're very, very salty, great electrolytes, good for energy. Eric's tiers, they go in here every day. By the way, the things I'm actually going to write on this Eric tiers, and that's going to be a new thing that comes out every single time we do the shows. My water bottle is going to be, I wonder if is a mistake because I got like the DraftKings thing engraved on it because it came from DraftKings.
Oh, crap.
If I could get like Eric's tiers engraved on it in some way.
I bet there's a way to do that. I bet you can make it happen.
I would pay at least $1,000 for that.
Yeah, I mean,
at least I mean at a minimum. If they told me that they charge less for it, I say no, I want to pay more for a water bottle that says Eric's tiers on it.
Yeah, that makes sense totally.
So thank you for the super chat, Greg.
Similar like pickle juice, right? Like people drink pickle juice to like get the electrolytes or whatever. I've seen athletes do it. I don't really get it why people do it. It's kind of gross, but I would guess that Eric's tears is like similar to pickle juice.
Yeah, and it is. So, and once again, Sotek saying in chat, it's hard to believe that Eric has electrolytes in him. You're misunderstanding. It's because it's the salt. It's the salt factor and how salty his tears are. Number one, it tastes excellent. But number two, yeah, it's good for your energy. Sotex brings up pickle juice is good for keeping you from cramping. So are Eric's tears. I recommend you guys try them. All you have to do is make fun of him a minimal amount each day, and he gets very, very upset, and it works perfectly. Anyway, also Miami Heat on the other side of the game with Jimmy Butler now playing. Nothing really stands out here either.
Yeah, same page. It's just everybody is relatively healthy for the Heat. I guess Kyle Lowry's still out, but he's the only significant player missing time with Butler, and nobody looks like a great value. Tyler Herro looks like the best point per dollar play on the Heat, projected for over 36 fantasy points at 7,200. So, 5.1x kind of value. Kevin Love, yeah, he hasn't been playing as many minutes. I thought it looked briefly like Kevin Love was going to come in and just play a ton of minutes. But not just playing 23, 24 minutes the past couple of games. That's probably where he's going to stay at 5,200. Kind of hard to play him. I guess on a 5-game slate, Kevin Love could spike an upside, get a double bonus, only coming in at around 2% ownership. So sort of interested in Kevin Love. But otherwise, yeah, Butler's playable, Bam's playable. They're both getting over 12% ownership, so not especially contrarian. But they, look like okay plays. So I think my favorite plays would be Tyler Herro, just from a point per dollar perspective. He's 7,200, looks fine. And then Kevin Love at 5,200, coming in under 2% ownership. I'm only interested because of the ownership. And I think Kevin Love, even if he only plays 24 minutes, could certainly bring in a double and get that bonus and pay off his price tag. So sort of interesting. Yeah, those are the only playable Heat for me. I guess Gabe Vincent looks like an okay. He's 4,200. We've got him projected for 30 minutes and 20 fantasy points. So he could spike an upside. Sort of interesting. Oladipo, kind of similar, 4,100, but only getting a little over 22 minutes. So I think I'd rather go to Gabe Vincent over Oladipo. It's close, though. Oladipo, the better fantasy asset. Anyway, no priorities for me.
And very, very, every once in a while, we see nonsense in the YouTube chat. Not today, though. Very, very sharp takes from some people, particularly Anthony Stewart here. Eric is the worst. Immature crybaby. The act is old. Couldn't agree with you more. I've been trying to fire him forever. He just keeps showing up, though. He's like George Costanza. The Seinfeld episode? George Costanza quits the job. He shows up the next day. It's like that, but we fire Eric and he keeps showing up.
Yeah.
He keeps showing up. We don't even pay him anymore. And he keeps showing up to shows. It's crazy. This show, people don't know this, on the weekdays, it's supposed to be a solo show. Just me by myself. And Eric keeps showing up. So we're like, all right, I guess we'll keep him here because why not? It's free labor. But
you put me in as kind of like a blocker. Like you got to have somebody here so that Eric doesn't step into that screen.
Yeah, but goddamn, do his tears taste good? Goddamn.
You know what else tastes good, Greg? Beer.
There we go. By the way, apologies to Jacob, who's only producing one of my shows for the second time. And I realized I told him what order I was going to talk about the games in, and I fucked up. I did the games out of order. That is my fault, Jacob. I realized that as I was going through, I'm like, I'm doing this in the wrong order, aren't I? But it's all right. We rebound. We recover. Moving on to what's probably my favorite game on the slate to target, the Houston Rockets against the San Antonio Spurs. Massive total, 230.5. And also just players out on both sides. Well, more so on the San Antonio Spurs side of the game where we've got players out, but really making this an interesting game. So I'm going to talk about the Spurs injury report here where Devin Vassell is resting. He's coming back from knee surgery, back-to-back scenario. He's going to rest. Also, big-time tank game, right? Spurs, Rockets, nobody wants to win this game. Doug McDermott, he's out. Kem Birch is out. Malachi Branham remains out. Keldon Johnson out. The Keldon Johnson one, I'm convinced, is solely because of tank purposes. But as a result, we've got all this value going to the San Antonio Spurs. This is the team that I'm getting the most exposure to. Is it the same case for you, Neil?
Yes, I'm almost certain that is the case. Yeah, looking at my highest owned player, Devontae Graham, my highest owned by far, Jeremy Stoka and Zach Collins. Yeah, I'm getting to a ton of the Spurs.
Yeah, and then one of the, because we got a question in the Discord channel, and this was something that you and I will often differ on this. So I wanted to know where you stand on this. For this slate, Nincash Merchant wants to know, are we maxing 3 players today? I am cool with 4 players from the Spurs. Now, I know, Neil, that you typically go 3 max. Is this the slate that bends you? Is this the one that you go, all right, maybe 4?
Maybe. So this is so I do like it's usually 3 for me on a full slate. This is right at the level. 4 or 5 games is typically where I start thinking about upping it to 4, and it just depends on what we have on the slate. Currently, a lot of the best value on the slate does come from the Spurs, so I think I'd be okay going to 4 here as well.
All right, we've done. This is the first time all year. I think I've gotten you to get on board with me with 4.
I've done it
It's
one other time, and it
huh?
was 4 in the optimal that night. So I was happy that I went to 4. I think it was the Pistons this week, last weekend. I don't remember when it was.
Well, there you go. You guys heard. Neil has only allowed 4 players from a team in his lineups once the entire year. It was optimal on that slate. He's doing it again tonight.
Yeah,
And
probably didn't have the
that
right
means
4.
a lot to me. Those small sample size, it means a whole bunch to me.
Oh yeah, very important.
But let's really break down these Spurs here, because this is the highest priority team on the slate. I'm getting to a bunch of exposure here, and there are some contrarian plays I like here as well. But Devontae Graham is the most popular player on the slate. He is projected for all of the ownership. He's in about 50% of lineups in both FanDuel and DraftKings. Do you believe the chalk on Devontae Graham is warranted tonight?
Yes and no. So like, yes, he is a great point per dollar play with all of these players out. Yeah, I mean he projects really well. I believe he is the top point per dollar play. Actually, I need to refresh because I was changing his projection, but he is at least among the top point per dollar plays. Yeah, he is the top point per dollar play on the entire slate, projected for over 29 fantasy points at 4,500. Usually, the best way for me to determine if a player is good or bad chalk, though, I look at the boom bust tool. The boom bust tool has Devontae Graham as massively negative leverage, 56% projected ownership, 41% chance of booming, 38% chance of being optimal, negative 17.8 leverage score. Now, keep in mind, this still does say he's optimal 38% of the time. He booms 41% of the time. So even with the massive negative leverage, it's not like he's a terrible play, but I think that I'm going to be playing a good amount of Devontae Graham. I'm probably not even going to be under the field. Maybe I'll be slightly under the field, but I'm not going to be massively under the field on Devontae Graham because he does have pretty good odds of putting up a big score. I'm just not going to be jamming him in every lineup. Like if you use Fantasy Cruncher without adjusting him at all, you're going to get him in every single lineup. Like that happened to me. I got 100% Devontae Graham the first crunch I ran because his point per dollar projection is just so good, especially for a player who is 4,500. Like oftentimes you get the really cheap guys there, but just looking at the boom bust, I trust it. I think he's got some risk associated with him. So I think I'm going to be, I'm not going to be above the field, I think is where I'm going to end up. How about you?
Yeah, I'm going to be on Devontae Graham pretty heavy here, assuming he starts. Now, if the Spurs lineup comes out and he's not starting, I'm pulling the plug, doing the ripcord, and I'm jumping ship. But considering that there are some contrarian players, like I mentioned, I'm going to be overweight to the field on Giannis. I like Caris LeVert a lot as a contrarian play. If I've got a lineup with LeVert and Giannis in it together, I don't think that many people have that combination, and I just don't have to worry about the ownership in the rest of the lineup by and large. So because there are some contrarian players that I am liking today, I'm cool with being on some of the chalky guys like Devontae Graham, and then also like some of the other players on this team. I know nobody's close to the ownership that we're seeing on Graham, but I like getting to Sokan. I like getting to Zach Collins. Is there anybody else on the Spurs that you think is going over-owned? Because we're all going to agree they're good points per dollar plays, but any of the other ones too popular in your opinion?
Yeah, so I think Graham is obviously the biggest negative leverage play on the slate. Jeremy Sokan is actually the number 2 negative leverage play on the slate. 40% projected ownership, 28% chance of booming, 31% chance of being optimal. Still looks like a great play. I still am going to play a lot of Jeremy Sokan. So it's hard to say, like, these guys are going a little bit over-owned, but I'm still probably not going to be far off from the field. I'm just going to stop myself from having like 90, 100% of Devontae Graham, Jeremy Sokan. I think that they're slightly over-owned, but sometimes you got to eat a little bit of chalk. So I think they're good enough chalk that I'm okay eating the, close to 56% on Devontae Graham, close to 40% on Jeremy Sokan. But keep in mind that if you play them, you're going to have to find somebody who's contrarian somewhere in your lineup. Yeah, nobody else looks like they're getting like way too much ownership from the Spurs. Zach Collins looks getting around 23% ownership, 22% chance of being optimal. Looks fine. Nobody else who's getting like crazy high ownership from the Spurs. So no major concerns there for me. Do you see anybody else?
No, I just wanted to ask you who, because I know you mentioned Charles Bassey before. Is he your favorite contrarian play from the team?
I believe yes. I don't see anybody else who really stands out as a great contrarian play. I do like Trey Jones a little bit. He's kind of a contrarian play coming in at only 13% ownership. So that's sort of interesting. And he's also obviously some leverage on Devontae Graham, I would say. So I kind of have some interest in Trey Jones.
Who?
Yeah. Trey Jones.
Who? This is probably the most disconnected joke I've ever tried to Mike Jones.
I don't, that's a wrestler, right? It's got to be a wrestling joke.
No. If you don't know the phone number, 281-330-8004. I know Jacob knows it. Jacob probably has it in his phone. That's probably the number I've called the most in my entire life.
I don't know what that means, what you're talking about. You want to keep explaining the joke?
I think jokes are probably best when you explain them 3-4
I know
more
that
times.
They are.
The good thing is the entire YouTube chat knows. That's what's
most
important.
I'm out of touch. What can I say?
I have to be honest. I'm fairly surprised you have no clue who Mike Jones is.
Mike Jones. Yeah. I'm going to go to YouTube chat to see if anybody. So
here's a question. All right. So without looking at anything, what would you guess Mike Jones's profession is? It's not wrestler. We've eliminated wrestler, so it's something else.
I'm going to disappoint you here. I just read it in chat, so you can't. I see that he is a Houston rapper. Is that correct?
That is correct. Now, in fairness, you could have answered a number of things, and there probably would have been a Mike Jones in that area of life.
True.
But yeah, the one that I'm referring to right there was Mike Jones. So that seemed to go over your head a little bit. I'm not positive, but I think that one you might have missed on. But yeah, that was a Mike Jones. It was Mike Jones, the rapper.
For a minute, I was like,
the fastest chat has moved so far today. Saturday night's usually a little bit quieter in chat, but we got a little bit of movement with that. With
people a little bit disappointed in me. Yeah.
Tall Tale wants to know, are you and the Flannel God fading any high-owned players on DK today? So for me, no. What I am doing is, like I said before, there's some contrarian guys that I'm pretty heavily overweight to the field on, and that's what I really feel like is going to set some of my lineups apart. But no highly owned guys that I'm outright fading. How about for yourself?
Yeah, like I'm going to be underweight to the field on Evan Mobley. He looks like he's the highest owned player that I'm like below half what the field has. But nobody that I'm
Mobley, if that counts.
You have none. Okay, that counts. I mean, he's 23% owned. He's a little bit chalky. Okay. Yeah, I would count that. But yeah, there's nobody, like I just sorted by ownership, and there's nobody on the first screen of ownership that I have 0 shares of, and I'm only playing 20 lineups tonight. So there's nobody that I'm fully fading. But yeah, underweight to the field on Evan Mobley. You're not playing him at all, so there's a good one.
Yeah, just the blowout risk there. I'm looking elsewhere. My favorite Cleveland Cavalier, Harris LeVert. Let's talk about the Houston Rockets on the other side of the game, because they're in an excellent matchup, because the San Antonio Spurs, straight up garbage. This is not a competitive team, not a team that's really actively trying to win games. Houston, on the other hand, is actually trying to win. Their players are just not particularly good. They got young guys with potential, but Jalen Green has been wildly inefficient this year. Hard to not love the matchup against the Spurs. Tari Eason has played some bigger minutes in recent games. Jayshawn Tate is out. That could also benefit him. If you look at the recent games for Eason, 25, 31, and 29 minutes. He's been a good fantasy producer all year, but the minutes have been kind of hard to come across. The minutes have been up as of late. Are you buying into this as a thing, Neil? Do you like Tari Eason?
Yeah, I do like Tari Eason. Definitely an interesting play. Ended up playing him in my so rare lineup. I think I'm going to have a good amount of Tari Eason. We're projecting him for 25.5 minutes. He's 4,300. He's a great fantasy producer. So I do think that I currently have like 80% Tari Eason. I don't know that I want to play 80% here, but 25 minutes the last game, 31 minutes the game prior to that. I have some interest. I think our minutes projection for him seems reasonable, 25.5. Ownership getting there around 34%. So, the field is getting there. Not like he's some contrarian play, but probably try to get to close to where the field is. It looks like he's a little bit over-owned in the boom bust tool, 34% ownership, 33% chance of being optimal, 30% chance of booming. Looks about appropriately owned. That's probably, I'm not going to try to let my night rest on Tari Eason. I don't feel extremely confident in it, but I think the field's got it about right. How about you?
Yeah, I'm loading up on Tari Eason. He is somebody who I'm buying into the recent minutes. It just makes sense considering a couple of things. Jayshawn Tate being injured, where the Rockets are in the standings. Their goal the rest of the year should just be try to develop their young players. And that should mean guys like Tari Eason get extended minutes that he hasn't in other parts of the time of the year. Like, there is no real reason to be giving big minutes like Usman Garuba giving him, any of the big man minutes going forward. Not that he's going to fall out of the rotation, but I do think more of those minutes should be going to Eason moving forward. I would like to see this team try to experiment with maybe going like Tari Eason even playing center. I think that could be interesting, but I buy into the recent minutes. It makes sense to me. Good matchup. I like Eason. Anybody else how about of the more expensive players? We've got Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green, Şengün, any of them standing out to you from the Houston side of this game?
Yeah, so Kevin Porter Jr. at 3% ownership. I'm looking at it, and that's sort of interesting to me. So we just came back his first game after missing a couple months almost, and he played 26 minutes against Memphis. I could see that those minutes come up a little bit more. Maybe he plays 30 minutes here, and if he does, man, he's going to look. I mean, he's going to look fine. He's still not going to project extremely well, but at 3% ownership against this Spurs defense, I have some interest in KPJ at 7,400. Yeah, healthier than they have been in a while, but I think I have some interest just as a contrarian, just because the ownership is coming in so low for Kevin Porter Jr. And like I could see him putting up 45 fantasy points in 30 minutes here, so I'm kind of interested. And then also like Şengün, I think he hasn't been playing huge minutes, but I don't think that they are fully trying to tank. I still think that he's still a reasonable play at 7,500. Obviously, he's no longer like there by himself to let us down day after day like he was for a while. For me, at least, I kept playing him and he kept letting me down. But I think I'll go back there again at 13% ownership. Feels about right. I might be a little bit above the field on Şengün. Jabari Smith, I'm actually getting a little bit. Jalen Green, I am currently well above the field. He and that's after cutting down on his projection a little, just a 5.5x kind of projection for Jalen Green tonight. 6,200, a little bit too cheap for him. So I have some interest there. I mean, it's as you said, it's probably the most interesting game on the entire slate. I like players from both sides. But yeah, I like across the board. I think Tari Eason, buying into the minutes, like him quite a bit, but I also like Jalen Green just as a point per dollar play. I'm getting to a lot of Jalen Green, some Jabari Smiths. I gave a boost to Şengün because I wasn't getting much, and I think that he's still pretty interested in me at 13% ownership. I'm getting to about the field 10% KJ Martin, and then Kevin Porter Jr. is the one that I'm trying to get above the field on.
Let's hit on some of these super chats here. And starting with Joseph Corona wants to know the top 5 cash options over on FanDuel. I could answer this one real quick. So for me, when I ran lineups, these are the players that I think come out as the best cash options on FanDuel. One of them is going to make Neil smile. Doesn't he only do the show when the Minnesota Timberwolves play? It certainly does feel that way.
I try to.
Yeah, it's in his contract. It's one of the things in his waiver. Like Eric's got all of these different like foods and bottled waters that have to be delivered to him. Neil just wants to make sure that he's doing live before locks when the Minnesota Timberwolves play. Anthony Edwards is one of the options for me. The other players, Devontae Graham, Hamidou Diallo, Keta Bates, Jop, and Jeremy Sochan. I'll say those are my favorite cash game plays over on FanDuel. The next super chat we have is from Teddy Wayman. LeVert or Diallo for FanDuel tournament. Well, that's tough because LeVert is so much more expensive on FanDuel. I'm going to go with Diallo for FanDuel purposes. DraftKings, though, I like the salary savings that we're getting with LeVert. It's just harder for me to pull that trigger when he's $5,400 over on FanDuel. And the next super chat, was there another one? I thought there might have been one. Here it is. Yeah, here we go. Josh D'Amato. Back then, Greg, I of all the words to read wrong, my name, I know that one. I've seen it many, many times. And I still looked at it. I was like, well, I did that wrong. Back then, Greg didn't want me. Now I'm hot. He all on me. That's a quote from Rodney Magruder and also potentially Mike Jones, the rapper, Neil.
Say that again.
We have to get you some of his music. Somebody make Neil a mixtape.
I'm happy. I've just never. I don't listen to a ton of rap music. I'm more of like
I find that very difficult to believe. My personal take.
I know.
Not how I would have had you pegged.
You see the flannel god and you think that guy likes rap.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like some. I like old school rap. Like I probably haven't given a chance to new school rap.
And he thinks Mike Jones is new. Mike Jones
is he not?
When was Mike Jones was popular? When I'm trying to think how old. Like, when was Mike Jones popular? Like 15 years ago? Jacob, like, nod if that's about the right. Somewhere around there. Yeah, somewhere around those time. But yeah, it's if you heard his music, I think there's a good chance you recognize it. Corey Bomber, favorite utility play under 7,500 on DK. So let's see. If he has 7,500 left, who would we recommend here? 7,500 on DK. For me, Şengün for the utility.
Şengün is the top projected play, or I guess that's after. No, yeah, he is the top projected play, and I like him at 13% ownership. So yeah, it's Şengün for me as well.
All right, Şengün the answer, and looks like we were all caught up on those. By the way, here's why the live before lock format. Sometimes I struggle in the game by game because I'm not always timely with the random tangents I go on, whether it be about Eric's tiers or whether it be about Mike Jones. There are just very, very pressing matters that come up over the course of the show. But the next game, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, covering both these teams as a whole. I really like Joel Embiid as a pay up option. I really like Giannis as a pay up option. And I think there's enough value that enables me to get to both of these guys on this slate. So just in the interest of time, Neil, I want to ask you, what are you doing with the pay up options in this game? Embiid, Giannis, and James Harden to a lesser extent, also fairly popular. Who do you like the most as a pay up? Like if you had to rank these three guys in terms of who you're getting the exposure to from most to least, what would be your ranking?
So Embiid, I'm getting the most exposure to. I'm actually above the field on Embiid currently. I think that Giannis is probably the one that intrigues me the most just because he's only getting 14% ownership. And I do think that there's a good chance that he plays significant minutes here just because of, it's a game that they'd like to win against the Sixers. And then Harden would be my number 3 of that group.
It is Embiid 1 for me, Giannis 2, and then Harden 3. I'm overweight to Embiid, overweight to Giannis. Is there anybody else from this game that you find to be particularly appealing? I have some interest in Tyrese Maxey just because it looks like he's back in the starting lineup, dead for the 6th man of the year. Very excited about that. I was posting some of the Quickly tickets, which I gave out from a very long time ago, but I'm pretty high on Quickly for 6th man of the year. I have him at like 180 to 1, I think is the number, 150 to 1, and he's now plus 120. So pretty excited about that. But part of the reason, and the reason I bring it up here, is because Tyrese Maxey is now starting for the Philadelphia 76ers. Do you expect that to continue, Neil? And how does that make him look as a value option? Because he does appear to be a little bit mispriced, as if it hasn't caught up for his new/old role returning.
Yeah, I assume it's going to continue. They've been doing, I guess they lost the last game against Dallas, but Maxey, I think, is a great young player. I never understood why they removed him from the starting lineup to begin with. So I guess I don't have a good read on what the coach is thinking, but yeah, I think he probably sticks in the starting lineup, continues to play. We've got him projected for 34 minutes tonight. He's been playing 34, 37 minutes the past 2 games. So I don't see any reason to think that he can't continue to play significant minutes. So yeah, I definitely have some interest in Maxey here.
By the way, we just got the starting lineup for the Pistons, which does not include Hamidou Diallo. Ooh. The starting lineup for Detroit is here. Starting lineup for Detroit: Hayes, Ivy, Livers, Bagley, James Wiseman. So Bagley and Wiseman starting together in the front court. And what are we going to do with Diallo in this scenario? Because it definitely impacts his playing time to some extent, particularly because it looks like the direction the Pistons are going is just playing bigger today, right? Yeah. I know that Diallo hasn't started another game, so it's not necessarily a role change for him, but what really catches my eye is that Bagley and Wiseman starting together in the front court. Are we going to be seeing bigger lineups for the Pistons today? And does that make Diallo or anybody else less appealing from Detroit?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge shock that Diallo is not starting. Is it Magruder who went to the bench? Also, yes. Okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm sorry for your family's loss.
Yeah, it's not great. His job appears to be in jeopardy.
This is good timing because I realized that I had like 86% Diallo and have been cutting back for the past couple of minutes, just bit by bit. I was down to 40%. Yeah, if the field is going to be playing 37% Diallo, and like I said, my expectation was that he wasn't going to be starting this game. He had not been starting, but if the field's going to be playing 37%, I think he's very risky coming off the bench. The only thing that could have happened that would have made me, maybe want to get to where the field is if he was starting, like if there were a change there in favor of Diallo. I don't think that I really want to get to where the field is with Diallo. I think I'm cutting back on his projection to try to get underweight to the field there. How about you?
Yeah, and once again, I wasn't expecting to start, but I wasn't expecting the big starting lineup, which just makes him slightly less appealing. So I'm going to try to alter some exposure in these final few minutes. Also, some questions we got coming in the YouTube chat. We appreciate all you guys. Robert Kermuchula wants to know, 5. And by the way, we could talk about, because it's not necessarily pressing, we could talk about the 10 p.m. game after lock because it is so much later than the other ones. And then we'll get into talking about PrizePicks, who, by the way, if you guys haven't signed up at PrizePicks yet, use the link we have below, up to $100 bonus on your first deposit. And, oh, there's even more, Neil. It's going to get you all the tools we have over at Stokastic.com free for 1 month when you sign up using our link. Robert wants to know, who are our 5 favorite non-Spurs players for FanDuel cash? For me, I would still say Diallo just based on what his ownership is going to be. Anthony Edwards, KJ Martin, Şengün, and kind of drops off after that. I guess I'll say Jimmy Butler because he's only $8,800 over on FanDuel. So that's what I'm going to go with for you there, Robert. The next question we have is from James Magruder, not the one I'm married to. This is a different. This is not Rodney Magruder. This is James Magruder. Well, who knows? Maybe this is a 3-way relationship, and there's going to be another development in the story. But he wants to know, who is our favorite utility play on DraftKings for $7,000 or less? All right, let me go and look at all of the salaries for the players. $7K or less on DraftKings. That answer for me. You have more teams.
So it looks like Zach Collins is the Stokastic's highest projected player for under 7,000. You would be able to pay up for Jared Allen, who projects just behind Zach Collins. So it'd probably be one of those two.
Yeah, the answer is Zach Collins for me, and then just got $600, upgrade another spot in your lineup. Yeah, that's what I think you should be doing there, Mr. Magruder. Another one of the Magruder family. Sean Sullivan Jr. wants to know thoughts on Embiid and Giannis in single entry. I like both of them. Like I said, overall, I get more exposure to Embiid, but I'm overweight to both Giannis and I'm overweight to Embiid. If this makes sense, I'm more overweight to Giannis than I am overweight to Embiid relative to what their ownerships are.
Yep.
I like both of them now.
Yep.
I like them both. Let's see what we've got in. Oh, by the way, Ashley, if you didn't get your free month, message support. Message support at stokastic.com or message me on Twitter, and I will alert our business team that you didn't get the free month. Just make sure to email support though, so they know. Some more questions we have in Discord. This from Snips1234. Last man in for utility spot, Levert or Bassi. That is Levert for me. And then I think that has us all caught up on the questions. Oh no, a couple more just came in right here. JEW, favorite low-owned plays for DK single entry. That is Caris LeVert for me.
Yeah, I think that's a great low-owned play. Who else? Hang on. I'm getting to, so I kind of have interest in Rudy Gobert, but I don't know that I'd necessarily go there. I had it sorted by center. Yeah, Caris LeVert is my highest owned of. I mean, I'm getting well above the field on Caris LeVert, so I agree with you there. I also like Charles Bassey. Talked about him a little bit. As far as really low owned guys, who am I playing that I'm above the field? Yeah, I'm above the field on. We don't have that many single digit players that I am playing. I am playing 10% of Rudy Gobert. He's only 6% though. So yeah, I'd say Caris LeVert probably the closest to a single digit ownership player that I'm really interested in, along with Charles Bassey.
You know, we got some people asking about starting lineups from the later games. We don't have them yet. The only teams we have starting lineups for are the Pistons and the Cavs, because the game starts in about 30 seconds. So we got their starting lineup, but no other starting lineups for us as of now. But let's move on to the final game of the slate, and one that I am not getting all that much exposure to, which, I mean, maybe Neil is just loading up on his guys, but the problem is this, like Fox, Edwards, Sabonis, these guys are all really expensive. And when I'm spending up, I just found myself more apt to getting to Joel Embiid, getting to Giannis Antetokounmpo, Harden to a lesser extent. So I've got some exposure to these guys, but nothing really significant, really anybody in this game, though, on the whole. So another reason why I didn't really find it that much of a priority to talk about this game here. But for yourself, Neil, was there any players that you were well overweight to the field on, or that you were trying to prioritize in the last game?
Yeah, so not like anybody that I'm hardcore prioritizing, that I'm playing like 50% plus in my lineups. It is really interesting. Like, these are two of the fastest paced teams in the entire league, neither all that great in terms of defensive rating. So it is an interesting game for me. I'll start with my Timberwolves. Yeah, I'm actually like right at the field's playing 17%. I actually only have 15% Ant right now, but that'll obviously change before that game comes up. I'll give him a projection boost, get more of Ant. I went out of my way to get above the field. I think 6% Rudy Gobert is just a little bit too low, particularly in this matchup. I have one share of Kyle Anderson, one share of Jaden McDaniels, one share of Torian Prince. Nobody else on the Wolves. I do think Naz Reid is playable in a 150 set at 4% ownership. I'd probably try to get above the field on Naz Reid. But again, I'm only playing 20 lineups. I'm only playing those 5 guys a little bit. Nobody stands out as like a huge, great point per dollar play, but I do think it's likely that somebody from each of these teams has a big game from either from the Timberwolves and the Kings. Like this should be a fast-paced game with not great defense. So
and the total is 238. So I agree with you on that. And the question is this though. Will anybody have a good enough game to rival the likes of Giannis Antetokounmpo or Joel Embiid? Because the reality is that these guys have to be kind of competitive with them. You know, Sabonis is 10K, Edwards is 9,400. You know, they still have to be competitive from a fantasy, you know, overall points perspective compared to, you know, Embiid and Giannis, who are, you know, $1,000 to $1,500 more expensive than these players. So to me, I agree with you. I think these players should score fairly well. I just prefer getting to the likes of Giannis and Embiid because they're just been better fantasy producers. And we're kind of seeing ceiling prices on these guys now. 9,100 for Fox, 9,400 for Edwards. That to me is why I don't really ultimately end up getting here.
Yeah, I think that is a fair point. I mean, Giannis is 12,300. So I'm going on my way to play Giannis. He is a lot more expensive than the likes of Domantas Sabonis is more than $2,000 less expensive than Giannis. So he doesn't really need to put up, you know, the same type of score as Giannis. But I see your point that we do have to worry about raw scores too. But I still think that it's like, you know, if say Sabonis puts up 56 and Giannis puts up 64, who would you rather have there? Like he's 2,300 cheaper. Like there's some chance that Giannis puts up 70, or I guess Embiid is the scarier one because he's only 11,200, so he's not as much more expensive than those guys. But like because it's a 5-game slate, I think that there's a greater chance that the better point per dollar plays, the Giannis and Embiid, or the better raw projections don't live up to or don't greatly exceed their expectations. So I actually think that this is a slate where it's a little bit more likely that like Ant could be the highest scoring player on the slate, or like within a couple points of the highest scoring player on the slate, than if it were like a huge slate. But again, we do have two like great, I mean, Giannis and Embiid, two of the better like projected players in the entire NBA for a 5-game slate. So there is certainly risk there, but I think that it's possible for a Sabonis or an Ant to rival the scores, or at least get close enough to Giannis or Embiid.
And they're not outright fades for me. They're just 10% guys. Like yeah, that's where I'm coming into these players. Whereas I'm just a lot higher on Giannis is in about half my lineups. I've got Giannis in just short of half my lineup. So, you know, with that in mind, those are the guys I got to. The other thing too is not to harp on the same thing over and over again, but I'm playing Caris LeVert. He's super cheap. I'm playing chalk Devontae Graham. It enabled me to get all the way up to the top tier guys a little bit more regularly, I think, than the field was able to. So I found those guys not all that hard to get to. Yes, and by the way, Mark Curry celebrating the Gary KO. Yeah, got a little, but I've been watching both. I'm a man of many, many talents. I've got YouTube. I can't do one thing at a time. Right. Over the course, I'm building my lineups. I'm watching UFC. I'm looking at the YouTube chat. I'm looking at Discord chat. So I did the Gary KO. Yeah, it was really dicey early, and I definitely did not want Kenan to win the fight. So pretty happy that Gary came through and got the late finish. Also, he should salvage his score based on the late flurry he had. That aside, LeVert ended up being chalk. No way. Oh, that'd be so upsetting.
Did he really?
Let's see. Did Caris LeVert really end up being? Am I gonna be like underweight to LeVert after all this? Oh my god! All right, let me download the CSV.
Oh, I didn't play them. I only played the 20 max, which is a rare thing for me. I usually always play the main.
What's your? Because I'm about to download the CSV. What's your guess for Caris LeVert's ownership?
All right, so we had him coming in around 11%, and people are saying that he's chalky. So I'm gonna guess 18%.
Let's see. So I have him in 25% of my lineups. If I'm underweight to Caris, I thought I was 2.5x the field on him. if I'm underweight to this is going to be very upsetting. I'm going to need to chug some Eric tears to make myself feel better if he's chalky. All right, let's download this CSV. It always takes a second because I have the slower computer in front of me. I got the fast computer is what streams the show. Did I tell you, by the way, we found out why my thing's been fucking up and why I dropped from shows?
I knew it was your camera. That's
as much as I know.
Yeah.
It was the camera. So it shouldn't. Well, it actually, I don't have the new camera yet, but it hasn't been an issue today. All right. We've got the CSV opening right here. I haven't looked at chat, so I don't know what it is that the ownership, I don't know what the ownership ended up being. I've got the file unzipping. Here we go.
Huh.
Oh, he's 12% owned.
Yeah, I just saw it in chat. So I'm like,
yeah.
So he came in right where we had him projected.
Yeah. All right. I'm good with that. I'm happy. I'm very happy with that. Yeah, you guys are gonna try to. All right, I need to recover, get those electrolytes from Eric tears. Yeah, that was very upsetting for a second there. You guys got me.
They're just trying to scare you. Got to give you a little scare every once in a while.
Eric tears. All right, so the ownership from that game, Bagley ended up being massively popular. 31% he ended up coming in after he moved into the starting lineup. Diallo came down. Diallo only ended up being 29% owned.
Yeah, it's disappointing.
29% for Diallo, 16% Wiseman, 15% Allen, 14% Mobley. So, it didn't end up being that much ownership on the Detroit side of the game. So, I mean, on the Cleveland side of the game, I didn't play them because of the blowout risk. But what is going to be your main rooting interest for this slate, Neil? Like, what's going to make or break you?
I would like for apparently now I want Marvin Bagley to fail because and this is kind of being on a show failure on my part that I did not update projections and run it again after we got an update on Marvin Bagley. So I currently have I have 0 Marvin Bagley. Looks like he didn't project all that much better anyway for us. So I guess I'm fine with that. But currently with Marvin Bagley being chalky, I'd say my biggest rooting interest is Marvin Bagley failure. But also it's going to come down to I have a ton of Tari Eason. I guess that would be probably the biggest thing. I currently have Tari Eason in 80% of my lineups. I might cut back on that a little bit more prior to the game starting. Maybe Charles Bassey is the guy who's coming in at very little ownership that I'm going to be above the field. So that's probably my biggest rooting interest, and Giannis to some extent.
Yeah, for me, still Karis LeVert, right? We survived. It didn't end up being the chat got me.
Yeah,
but we're good. We're still rooting for Karis LeVert. There is no ownership concerns that ended up coming there. So I'll be rooting for him. I'll be rooting for Giannis, Joel Embiid. I'm rooting for stars and scrub slate. That's what I want. I want some cheap dudes to go off. I want the big guys to go ham tonight, and then I'll be sitting pretty. Yeah. Those are my rooting interests. And also, we're about to find some other players to root for because we're going to break down some PrizePicks stuff. If you guys haven't done it yet, by the way, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. But let's also shout out PrizePicks, the sponsor of the show. And to remind you guys, if you haven't signed up at PrizePicks, use our link below. Up to $100 bonus on your first deposit and 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. If you guys sign up and don't immediately get credited for it, there is a little bit of a lag, but email support at stokastic.com and they should be able to help you out if you have any issues. Let's go look at what's going on in chat. Sotek saying on to the late slate. That's why that's always important. Whatever happens in the first 5 minutes of the game shapes the entire slate.
Has it even started yet?
I don't know, but I think we should be panicking anyway.
I'm panicking.
Yeah.
Obviously.
If you're not overexposed to the player who scores the most fantasy points, if you're not overexposed to the player who scores the first bucket of the first game on the slate, you tilt enter showdown contest as soon as possible. It's Definitely. The only reasonable way to react.
100%.
Only reasonable way. All right, let's bring up PrizePicks here. I'm going to pull up some of the tools we have on the site. And by the way, if you guys haven't checked out NBA Bet Pro or our NBA Picks package, we have tools dedicated just for these pick'em sites. NHA, PrizePicks, they're bundled together. It's also is as a part of our NBA Bet Pro package. So depending where it is you guys are looking to play, NBA Bet Pro is everything covered. But then we've also got a pick'em package, which is just going to be the NHA PrizePicks of the world. And let's look at what stands out over on PrizePicks, Neil. I'm going to be pulling that up, and I assume you're pulling up our projections as well. Pulling up. Actually, I also want to check out some of the UFC stuff for tonight because I had some picks for. I want to see if any of it's moved. I forgot. So one of the ones that I did in my video already won. I had Tabitha Ricci over takedown, so that one hit.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll look through some of the NBA stuff. You have any props standing out to you looking at our projections right now?
I'm pulling it out right now. I'm trying to figure out how to find it though. NBA.
It's in if you go to NBA Bet Pro, it's right in the PrizePicks tab.
Okay.
That's the easiest way to find it. And it's also got the props for everything. It's sorted by all the sports books. It's super easy to use. Super easy. I'm also looking at some of the fantasy point projections. There's one that stands out to me just right off the bat. And by the way, if you guys are ever looking at the fantasy scores over on PrizePicks, it's the same as FanDuel scoring. You can look at our FanDuel projections and compare it. Şengün's over-under for fantasy points is only 34.5 over on PrizePicks. I love the over of 34.5 for Şengün. I've got him for nearly 40 fantasy points. That immediately stands out to me as something that we should be putting in here. So Şengün over 34.5 fantasy points. That looks pretty good to me. Did you see in our projections where we have?
Are we looking at PrizePicks specifically?
What's that?
We're looking at our PrizePicks bets.
Yes. Yeah. But the so there's over/under for fantasy points on PrizePicks. It's the same as FanDuel scoring.
Right.
So over 34.5. We've got Şengün projected over that. I do as well by a pretty good margin. So I like Şengün over 34.5. But any props that are projecting well over on PrizePicks that are catching your eye?
There's one that's standing out to me right away, and that's Anthony Edwards over 5 rebounds. Has a 63% chance of winning. Obviously, I'm going to go to Ant over 5 rebounds. I love that one against Sacramento. She'll be, just getting to analysis to reverse engineer why I can bet on my favorite player. It is a great game environment. It's 2 of the fastest paced teams in the league, 2 of the worst defensive teams in the league. Just a great spot for Ant overall. What is the rebounding percentage? Sacramento, they got a 15 point. So they're slightly above average rebounding team. I don't care. Fast enough pace. Give me the over there.
All right. I think that also makes sense. By the way, we did get the starting lineup for the Spurs, but nothing surprising. Trey Jones, Devontae Graham, Keita Bates-Diop, Jeremy Sohan, and then we've got Zach Collins. So as expected, Devontae Graham is starting. He was going to be massively popular. What do you make of him being in the starting lineup as expected?
Yeah, I think I'm going to play a lot of Devontae Graham. The field's getting there, but it'll be hard for him to have just an awful game. Obviously, it's possible we could get popped here, but I think it's likely that he's going to play enough to pay off a $4,500 salary. He could do that in 25 minutes, and we've got him projected for 32. So I think that he's a decent play at 53% ownership. I think I'm probably going to be close to the field.
All right. Yeah, that's, for me, like I said, I was contrarian elsewhere, so I didn't find any issue getting to Devontae Graham as a more popular play. He's a decent enough fantasy producer, and he's also so cheap. He plays a bigger role with the Spurs than he did back when he was with the Pelicans. It's also a great matchup against the Rockets. Very rarely do we see the Rockets or the Spurs in tightly lined games, Neil. The game actually for this, because I know you're not the most into the betting streets, but what would you guess was the opening line for Spurs Rockets, with the hint being that books didn't really know who to favor?
I would guess the opening line was, Spurs 120, Rockets 116.
It was a pick'em. It was a straight pick'em where it was even on both. So a little bit of line movement closer to locks. The Rockets closed as a 1-point favorite. But yeah, they just opened it up to we don't know what to do. Neither of these teams really wants to win. It's a pick'em. So we ended up, like I said, Houston closed a 1-point favorite, but just goes to show how close this game is going to be, or at least how close it's expected to be. And that we never see that from these teams. Very often Houston or San Antonio are playing and they're massive underdogs. Not in this spot. Big total, should be a tight game. So I like Devontae Graham even as a chalk option. You guys should be playing him in cash as well. Want to go check to see if we got any questions that came into Discord over the last few minutes. JEW saying, I just realized I went 100% Levert. Come on, Karras.
Wow. Okay.
How do you do it by accident? I did. I like the stand. I'm overweight to Levert. I didn't go 100%, but
yeah. Hopefully you're not 100% in 150 lineups, unless they're like nickel lineups, because that's risky for doing the $15 150 times. But if you're playing 10 lineups and you have a 100% Caris LeVert, that's fine.
We've got another question here. This one comes from Dre Everyday. I have a feeling with his name being Dre over Everyday, he's probably more familiar with Mike Jones than you. Just a hunch. A hunch.
Dr. Dre is my favorite all-time rapper. So like he might be from the same generation as me.
So I was assuming that when you heard the name Dr. Dre, you thought he was an MD.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's what I thought you were going to say. Who is that? He's an oncologist, right? Dre Everyday wants to know Mike Conley or Trey Jones for a FanDuel GPP. Let's see.
It's probably, I'm playing a lot of Trey Jones. I'm not playing much Mike Conley. So, you said FanDuel though? I guess that's a different game.
They're basically the exact same price on FanDuel. The answer is still Trey Jones though. Who? Trey Jones. Yeah, Trey Jones.
He did use Mike and Jones in that question. Did you do that on purpose, you think? Was that trying to bring back up the Mike Jones conversation?
I don't think he did, but it's a nice, fun coincidence. It's a coincidence that I enjoy. Yeah, Mike Conley, Trey Jones. I prefer Trey Jones. I even DraftKings purposes as well. I like Trey Jones more there. By the way, people are saying Bagley on fire.
Shit.
Literally? That would be something. All right. So we've got Bagley has 2 points, 2 rebounds, an assist, and a block in the first 3 minutes of the game.
I don't like it.
Then we've got nobody really doing anything from the Pistons from the Cleveland side of the game. Donovan Mitchell's got 5 points, no other stats, and nothing else happening there.
Sounds like they need Caris LeVert.
Could be. Let's see if anybody's in foul trouble yet, or if any personal foul has been picked up. One on Garland. You never know if he is going to get in foul trouble defending the likes of Killian Hayes. Seems fairly unlikely, but that would be one way to get Caris LeVert extra minutes. Let's go back over to PrizePicks, and we've got Şengün. We've got the over on his fantasy points. We've got Ant Edwards, the over on his rebounds. Let's see what else stands out. Gonna pull up our projections, go back to that. And once again, guys, if you guys want to check out all the projections, we have an NBA Bet Pro. We do have a 7-day free trial available as well, and totally risk-free way to check out what some of our data looks like for betting purposes behind the scenes here. Let's see. PrizePicks. What else is looking decent for us? We've got the under projected well for Giannis, but I'm going to avoid that. His minutes are so difficult to figure out for today. And I think there's big upside in his minutes for this spot. So going to avoid that one. What else looks good, though? Bam Adebayo. So this game's locking shortly. But Bam Adebayo over under of 8 rebounds. 8 rebounds is a very low number for Bam.
Yeah, it feels low to me. And the projections our tool agrees that it's low. So I like that one.
And also, if you look at Bam's numbers for the year, he's averaging 10 rebounds per game. It's a good matchup against the Atlanta Hawks. I think it's reasonable to project him even for north of 10 rebounds in this spot, all things being considered. So Bam Adebayo, another thing too, is once again to tie into before when I was bringing up the Bucks and I was talking about the Sixers, and I said, a game that has some implications in the standings. We could see the starters, the key players play extended minutes. I feel the same about the Heat Hawks game. Now, it's not as appealing as the other games on the slate, so it wasn't one that I was really dying to get to from a DFS perspective. But 8 rebounds is straight up disrespectful to Bam Adebayo.
So I will say this because I just remembered that I did a prop about like an NHA. I did a read about Bam Adebayo, and it seemed low to me. And then I look at his rebounds, just his totals since Kevin Love joined the Heat. 7, 6, 7, 8, 4 have been his rebounding totals in the 5 games since Kevin Love joined the Heat. So I wonder if that's factoring in a little bit to the number there, just that he seems to have taken a backseat. But I think we can still go with it. We like him here.
Yeah, I'm going to be going, like I said, going with Bam there. We just got a super chat here from Olrat14. Faded Giannis and Ant-Man, only 5% Embiid. Am I losing? Depends who you played. You don't have to leave a super chat, but I'd be curious, Olrat, who are your most exposed players? You have different lineups than me.
Yeah, me too.
But I don't know. Did you play Bagley? Bagley's off to a good start.
Yeah, hopefully play Bagley. But I also Bagley fails, so hopefully you didn't play Bagley and then he fails.
Maxwell Miller says it's over. No Bagley, no cash.
Shit.
I wouldn't go that. Let's see. Has Bagley done more?
He's still at 8 fantasy points in 5 minutes.
So the other thing too is Cavs already opening up a pretty big lead here. It is now 14-6. The Pistons were up 6. I think let's see. Weren't the Pistons up early in this game? They had a massive 6-4 lead in the early going, and then the Cavs have gone into a 10-0 run. So Cavs back on pace for their blowout, up big early, which I don't know what the Pistons would do in garbage time. Would it be Diallo? Would Wiseman be out there? Would Bagley be out there? I have a good feeling we're going to find out in a couple of hours or so.
Yeah.
So Olrad 14. Once again, Olrad, I'm not sure who you played, but just because you played some different guys than us on the high end doesn't necessarily mean that your lineups aren't good. We'll see. Shady Great in our Discord channel wants to know who my top low-owned guys are. Karis LeVert, that's the guy who I've got the most exposure to. In terms of going forward, who's a player in the later games that's low owned that you have a good amount of exposure to, Neil, as a contrarian play? Like my guy was Karis LeVert, and how many contrarian guys could you really be on? Maxi's somewhat contrarian. I'm overweight to him. I was actually surprised he wasn't projected for more ownership.
So I have a share of Taurean Prince in my 20 lineups, which puts me above the field because he's only getting 3.4% ownership. I have 10%, so 2 lineups with Rudy Gobert. He's only getting 6% ownership, so he's kind of contrarian. I think he's interesting. Anthony Melton, I didn't do anything this projection. I have 10%. He's coming in at 8%. Just the projection is, his ownership coming in just a little bit lower than it probably should for his projection. We're projecting for 26 minutes, 20 fantasy points. I do have so I have 20% Domantas Sabonis. He's coming in at 11% owned, so I'm a little bit over the field there, but actually, no, none of these are the answer. The answer is Charles Bassey. I have Charles Bassey in 10 of my 20 lineups currently, half of my lineups, and he's only getting 12% ownership. So that would be my biggest stand is Charles Bassey.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Giannis going forward is the guy that would be the answer for me, but overall for the slate, the 2 players that were lower owned in our projections relative to what I got, it's going to be Giannis and Karis LeVert. So hopefully we got that blowout going for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Have they come out of the commercial timeout yet? They have. Marvin Bagley shooting free throws, Neil.
Oh, man. Killing me with this Bagley stuff.
You gotta sweat every single Marvin Bagley point in the first.
Is he missing the free throws, though?
I don't know because I looked down after he was shooting the free throw. So remains to be seen there. We did get a super chat. Oh, from the news god himself, El Negro Loco. Non-NBA question for Greg. Alexa Grasso or Valentina tonight? Also, shout out to the flannel good. I'm pretty sure he meant God, but I'm cool with Neil being the flannel good as well.
I don't mind that either. We can go with that.
Flannel goods. He's the flannel goods. It's Valentina Shevchenko all day, all night. I think it should be a pretty massive advantage for Valentina, particularly if she chooses to wrestle and grapple. Sometimes she's a little bit hesitant to do that in her fights, but I do think that we see her get the wrestling game going, and I don't think Alexa Grasso is going to have an answer for that. So pretty strong lean towards Valentina there. Cheyenne DeWald, Langford worth a shot on FanDuel. Let's see. In my FanDuel runs, did I have Langford in there? Off the top of my head, the answer is no, Cheyenne, but I am going to double check. Romeo, where are thou in my projections? Here. No. As expected, no. No, got him projected for under 15 fantasy points. Makes him hard to prioritize, especially on a slate where there's a lot of value to be had. So that is a no for me on Romeo Langford. By the way, all right, you didn't have to leave a super chat. Now I feel bad. Now I feel like I made him leave a super chat telling me who he was rostering. You could have just thrown it into. I apologize. That was not what my intention was. But Olrad 14 played Graham, Green, Diallo, Harden, Eason, Sohan, Murray, and Bam. I don't really like Keegan Murray, to be honest. Did you play Keegan Murray really at all today?
Let me look. I don't think so. Yeah, not in any significant way, but let me look.
All right, so he has Keegan Murray as a forward. Is there somebody that I might be able to recommend he pivots?
I do. I have 15% Keegan Murray. without, I didn't do anything. He projects, actually, he's 5.6x value based on our projection. We've got him projected for 25 fantasy points in 31.5 minutes at 4,500. So just based on the projection, I got to a little bit of Keegan Murray. And I don't hate it. I mean, we've got the field projected for 21%. I'm a little bit underweight to the field, but that feels about right.
Yeah, so the player I was going to say projects better is Tari Eason, but Eason's also in his lineup. So all I considered, I think that's a reasonable lineup there, Olrat.
Yeah.
Like I have some exposure to Bam Adebayo. He certainly wasn't a priority, but I'm not going to say he's unplayable. I think that's fine. I don't have any issues with that. Any players you look at that and say that you need to be taking anybody out there? Once again, Graham. Green. I assume that's Jalen Green, Hamidou Diallo, James Harden, Tari Eason, Jeremy Sohan. I assume that is Keegan Murray, and then Bam Adebayo.
It's an interesting lineup. I think this will be a fairly contrarian lineup. So obviously, it's got Devontae Graham in there, but otherwise, I guess Tari Eason, Sohan, kind of chalky. But I think it's a good balance of like chalky versus contrarian plays. So yeah, I don't mind it.
Karis LeVert just checked in. All right.
That's our guy.
Here we go. Checked in with about 5 minutes left in the first quarter. So chance for some extended run there.
I said that's our guy, but really that's my guy. Because you, from what I recall, you said you only played 25% Karis LeVert. Mm-hmm. I got 30%. So really he's my guy. Okay. You know, if he does well, guys, give me kudos.
All right. There we go. Rush Tank, smash the likes for Eric Tiers. Go ahead and do it. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Looks tasty.
Oh, yeah. You should try it. It's not that hard. You just have to like tell Eric, like, oh, your makeup looks a little
The problem is I've never met him in person. Like when I meet Eric in person, I'll make fun of him a little bit. I'll bring a little canister, collect some tears. But
yeah, no, I'm telling you, all you have to do is tell him like his makeup doesn't look great that day, and he will start crying and he'll collect it. Yeah, it says like if you just make any sort of comment about his appearance, it's like 2-3 hours of tears. And he's a heavy crier too. Like you'll collect months worth.
Do you get some of that makeup in the tears though? Like, is there a premium for tears that don't have the makeup in it?
No. He pays a lot of money for his makeup and it's very high quality. It actually doesn't run.
Nice. Yeah. That's wonderful.
He knows what he's doing. Let's see. No more questions in YouTube. No more questions in Discord. Only a couple minutes left to go here, Neil. Let's see if we could find any other props that we also like that we didn't talk about on PrizePicks. The answer is no. That's also more than reasonable. But I just want to look through these players and make sure there isn't anything that we have overlooked. Let's see. Keta, Bates, Jop. I like the over for his rebounds. We project it well. He is confirmed as the starter. His over-under for rebounds over on PrizePicks is 5. We got him projected for 5.6. Actually, I have him a little bit higher than that. So KBD, Keta Bates Jop. That is going to be another one that I think we could add to that card there. I like the over on his rebounds. Any final things that stand out to you in our projections you want to bring up before we wrap up the show?
No, I mean, obviously you can always go with, the tools will tell you everything that you should play. So Kyle Anderson, if I can go with another Timberwolves player, Kyle Anderson also has a prop line of 5 rebounds. We've got him projected for 5.8, like that one. John Collins feels a little bit volatile with the over under set at 4.5. We got him projected for 5.3 though. And, we could get there even in regular minutes without getting extended minutes. So I think that's fine. But yeah, nothing else that really stands out as a must play above the others, but a lot of good bets here.
Yeah, lots of good numbers. Once again, if you guys want to get access to this 7-day free trial, clicking on the link below for NBA Bet Pro, and you'll get not just PrizePicks, we've also got No House Advantage in here, Caesars, BetMGM, PointsBet, FanDuel, DraftKings, and then also a best bets column, which is just going to be across every sports book. These are the bets that we have projected out the best. Any final thoughts for you, Neil? If not, it's time for me to eat some food, stuff some food in my face.
Wish me luck. I'm heading off to Hell on Earth immediately after we hang up here. So,
all right. So, Neil, good luck on Hell on Earth. I am about to go make some potato blintzes. Very excited. Going to sit down, watch some UFC. Should be some good fights tonight. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you didn't do it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Good luck tonight.